So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Rackham's reception honoring the 2026 University of Michigan inductees to the Edward A. Bouchet Graduate Honor Society. Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chloe Secor, she, her, hers. I'm an academic program manager on the Partnerships for Access, Community, and Excellence team at Rackham Graduate School. And one of my favorite things I get to do in that role is support the Bouchet Graduate Honor Society. And that is what I'm here to do today. So I'm excited to be with all of you. All right, so as many of you know, the Edward Alexander Bouchet Graduate Honor Society was named for the first African American to receive a doctoral degree in the United States, completing his PhD in physics at Yale University in 1876. I'm going off script for a second, but I do want to say the first African American at a public university was at University of Michigan, and that was, And that was Elmer Imes, who received his PhD in chemistry. So just putting that out there. So we hold an honor too, but the Honor Society recognizes outstanding scholarly achievement and promotes excellence in doctoral education and the professoriate. Bouchet also seeks to develop a network of scholars who exhibits all the hallmarks of excellence in graduate study and are exemplary in 5 cardinal areas or pillars: scholarship, leadership, character, service, and advocacy. The founding chapters of Bouchet are Yale University, where Edward Bouchet received his degree, and Howard University, one of the top producers of African-American PhDs in the United States. The Honor Society now has 19 chapters and continues to grow every year. The aims and ideals of Bouchet are consistent with the graduate school's commitment to academic and inclusive excellence. The University of Michigan's chapter was founded in 2009, so this year's cohort represents our 17th group of inductees, now totaling well over 100 members. I would now like to introduce Assistant Dean Ethan Brammer, who will be providing a few welcoming remarks, as well as the territorial acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you all for today's celebration, including those of you who are able to join us in person here at the Vanguard Hotel in Ann Arbor, as well as those joining us online via live stream. I'd like to begin by expressing my sincerest gratitude and appreciation for Chloe Secor, Trish Fugate, Kelly Dowd, Kiara Marshall, and all of those at Rackham who've contributed to the success of Bouchet on our campus, without whom none of this would be possible. Round of applause, please. Additionally, I'd like to recognize all of the folks here at the Vanguard Hotel who've supported us by preparing these beautiful facilities, as well as the hands that have so generously grown and prepared our food today, and our American Sign Language support right next to me and at the table. I'm gonna give them a round of applause as well. As we honor the historic and barrier-shattering legacy of Edward Alexander Bouchet, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge that the University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus resides on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, ceded through the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. Of course, even those of you who are joining online, no matter where you may be joining us from around Turtle Island, now also known as North America, you are also on native land, and it is important to honor and recognize this fact. However, the University of Michigan in particular has a special relationship with its local native communities because in 1817, the Ojibwa, Adawa, and Potawatomi nations ceded land through the Treaty of Fort Meigs. During those historic treaty negotiations, tribal leadership advocated for the educational diversity, access, and opportunity through the inclusion of Article 16, which made clear that a specific portion of the land being ceded through the treaty would be set aside so that their children could be educated. This expression of agency by Indigenous community on behalf of future generations of students from diverse backgrounds is an essential chapter of the origin story of the University of Michigan. We as an institution only exist as we do today due to their ancestral struggle for peace, justice, and equitable access to education. We further recognize that whether you are here on campus in Ann Arbor, in Dearborn perhaps, or anywhere else in the United States, we also stand on land developed at the expense of forcibly enslaved black people. We acknowledge that much of this country, including its culture, economic growth, and development, has been made possible by the extracted labor of enslaved Africans, indigenous people, and other populations. The struggles against settler colonialism and anti-Blackness will always and forever be inextricably linked to the land, the collectivity, and to the ancestors. So we thank those Anishinaabe and Black ancestors who came before us for their labor, their vision, their leadership, and their advocacy as we look to learn from their example, and we continue to struggle for greater social equity for generations to come. Edward Alexander Bouchet, of course, was also an important ancestor in this same struggle for racial and social justice through access and opportunity in education, especially graduate education. And you all represent the next generation of ancestral giants upon whose shoulders future generations will stand, which is exactly why we're so thrilled to be able to celebrate you all in this way today. Can we have another round of applause for our Bouchet inductees, please? And so, to help us continue to celebrate you all, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dean Michael J. Solomon, the Dean of the Rackham Graduate School and Vice Provost for Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Ethan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so delighted to be able to welcome you as well today and to take part in our annual Rackham Bouchet Graduate Honor Society reception. Whether you're here joining us in person or virtually, I couldn't be more pleased to celebrate our newest Bouchet inductees, along with their advisors, friends, and family members. We are here today due to the legacy of Dr. Edward Bouchet, who needs no further introduction. Our inductees today honor his example by embodying the values of the society, which you've heard before, but I think bear repeating. They are scholarship, leadership, character, service, and advocacy. As I was thinking about these values early today, I thought that these are ways in which the ideals of the Bouchet Society intersect with some that we pursue at Rackham. During the time I've been privileged to spend in my role as Rackham Dean, some of the most important work we have pursued as an organization involves broadening access to graduate education at UM and creating environments in Rackham programs in which students can thrive. Part of our stated mission as a graduate school is to cultivate a vibrant and diverse student community. While so much of the world has changed since I became dean, our commitment to that mission has not. Rackham has long centered diversity as an essential component of excellence in graduate education, even at a time when the value of diverse perspectives in the academy and even of scholarship and research are openly under attack. We will continue to do so at the graduate school under the law and in the spirit of our mission. To me, that means identifying and addressing the needs of our students as a whole, and also recognizing that each student comes from a different background, has their own goals, and travels a unique path to connect the two. That progress depends upon students being able to reach out between disciplines and across difference, to feel a sense of belonging and to build networks of scholarship and support, all of which is epitomized by the Bouchet Society, which is why we at Rackham are so honored to be a supporter of it. My colleagues and I feel a deep responsibility to translate the ideas in our mission into actions that benefit Rackham students. I believe that work is more critical today than ever. We are not always perfect, and we'll continue to seek new approaches to support our students as they advance knowledge, make discoveries, and create art and creative practice that does so much to benefit our world in turn. As you become members of the Bouchet Society, I trust that the community you join today will amplify your sense of agency, inspire you to envision new ways that you can lead change, and connect you with those who share your aspirations. Rackham is proud to be your partner and your supporter as you move forward. It gives me great pleasure to add my own congratulations to this year's inductees of the chapter of the Edward A. Bouchet Graduate Honor Society. Please join me in a round of applause as we celebrate their remarkable achievements. Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to the program and the awardees and the presentations. Thanks.
All right. I apologize to every person who's gonna have to pull this mic back down every time. So, it's what we gotta do. All right. So the next section here is what we are really excited for. To echo Dean Solomon, we are going to have each. Or not candidate. Whoa, inductee. Wrong thing. Different ceremony today. Some of them are candidates, sure. Each inductee come up and do a brief presentation about their research. So I'll give a little introduction. They'll give a presentation, and then for the supporters in the room, the photo op is right after they present. They're going to get a certificate presented by Dean Solomon and Assistant Dean Brammer. So just wanted to prep everyone. But I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. So that's our presentation that I probably should have had up, but that's all right. All right, and I'm going to start with Julianne Armijo. She is a PhD candidate at the University of Michigan School of Nursing, a T32 predoctoral trainee supported by the NIH, and a family nurse practitioner. Her research examines how sleep and chronotype impact quality of life among adults with bipolar disorder, focusing on employment status and challenges faced by nurses. With 16 years of clinical experience, Julianne advocates for occupational mental health and stigma reduction. She provides primary care to underserved communities at Hope Clinic in Ypsilanti, Michigan, mentors students, and serves as a student leader in the Center of Research Excellence in Bipolar Disorder Student Network. Julianne?
Thank you. So there are many things that are quintessential to the human experience. The need to breathe, the need to eat, to drink water, a shared hatred of stepping in an unidentified wet substance at 2 a.m., and also the need to sleep. So unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we all need to sleep. So how many people in here are completely and utterly satisfied with their sleep schedule? I was going to say, even if whether it was one person, I would have been like, we all want to talk to you. So how many people have heard of the concept of chronotype? Okay, so a couple people. So simply put, chronotype is it's our body's natural preference for when we feel most awake and when we feel sleepy during a 24-hour period. And that 24-hour cycle that happens every day is called the circadian rhythm. And also, chronotype, more colloquially known, is, it's more like if you've heard of an early bird or a night owl. That's also kind of a colloquial term. So many of us are unhappy with our sleep because our daily schedules don't match our chronotype. So when our routines are misaligned with our circadian rhythm, our sleep suffers, and so can our quality of life. So this matters even more in bipolar disorder, which is a chronic, sometimes debilitating condition that's highly sensitive to circadian disruption, and it's associated with functional impairment and a low quality of life. So sleep problems aren't just inconvenient in bipolar disorder, they can destabilize mood, either through depression or mania, and in severe cases actually lead to hospitalization. So nurses are especially vulnerable to circadian misalignment because they work at all hours of the night, often in stressful environments. So then why should we care specifically about nurses? They are the largest healthcare workforce in the world. Chances are everyone in this room has either been directly or indirectly impacted by a nurse. So depression is also common in nursing, so we know less about bipolar disorder, and that's an important research gap. So my first research aim is to examine how sleep and chronotype relate to quality of life over time in a larger longitudinal cohort of adults with bipolar disorder, and I want to see how employment moderates that relationship. And then my second aim is to test all of those relationships among a smaller subpopulation of nurses diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but also adding in semi-structured interviews to fortify that very small sample. And basically, the implications of this work can inform targeted interventions, such as strategies to support circadian alignment and optimize work conditions to improve quality of life for people living with bipolar disorder. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, on to our next inductee. Enrica E. Bridgewater is a PhD candidate in the Communication and Media program and Developmental Psychology program at the University of Michigan. She received her Bachelor of Science in Psychology with honors from Brooklyn College in 2018 and her Master of Science in Psychology from U of M in 2023. Her work explores how exposure to the entertainment media content impacts identity development, well-being, stereotype endorsement among people of color. Her research and service have been recognized within the Daniel Katz Dissertation Fellowship by the Institute for Social Research and the Anna Olcott Smith Award by the Rackham Graduate School. Enrica? And then you have your clicker. Okay, I'll leave it to you.
And I'm gonna set a timer because I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to not go over. So I'm gonna set a quick timer. Okay. Okay. So, whether you are a self-proclaimed pop culture nerd or someone who likes to dip their toes into pop culture every now and again, you've probably heard the term representation matters. And this term, or this phrase, tends to come up a lot when talking about a new TV show or movie featuring characters of color, such as Coco, Crazy Rich Asians, Black Panther, and Blackish. And so my work is really interested in studying how representations of people of color in entertainment media, but also how exposure to entertainment media content impacts how people of color view themselves and their social groups. So my dissertation takes both a multi-method and interdisciplinary approach to really understand, the how, when, and why of how people of color are impacted by entertainment media. And so my first study is a meta-analysis that seeks to address the question, how does watching entertainment media, such as television and film, relate to or influence self and in-group perceptions, such as self-esteem and ethnic racial identity, among viewers of color? So for this study, I synthesized and analyzed research that has been either published or presented on between 1970 and 2024 to really gain a better sense of the patterns in this research. And then my second study is an audience reception survey in which I really wanted to know, what are specifically Black and Hispanic Latinx viewers' memorable experiences of feeling represented in entertainment media. So here I ask folks like, who's the character media figure you feel most represented by and why? If you could speak to like a director about how to improve on-screen representations of your groups, what would you tell them? And then I have them define for me what they think representation matters means. And then my last study is a skill validation paper, which I'm really interested in understanding, what are the multi-layered feelings that specifically Black, Hispanic, Latinx, and Asian viewers experience when watching entertainment media featuring their groups. And so overall, my hope with my dissertation is to really get into and do a deep dive of all of the complexities surrounding, how people of color are impacted by entertainment media. And my broader goal is to take this work into folks in the entertainment industry to be like, okay, we have come a long way in terms of representations of people of color and other minoritized groups, but we still have a long way to go. So, thank you. Oh my God. It's okay, I was like, don't worry. She doesn't want to come out, it's fine.
I hate interrupting the photo op. I'm like, I know we all just stare, but it's important. All right, amazing. Thanks, Enrica. I'm gonna start in the interest of time. All right, we're gonna move on to our next inductee. Woohoo! Kayon Christie is a PhD candidate in sociology specializing in migration and urban studies. Her dissertation research explores how the transnational practices of the Jamaican diaspora shape ongoing urban transformations in Jamaica's capital city, Kingston. Kayon's research has been supported by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada and the University of Michigan's International Institute, and has been recognized by the American Sociological Association and the Pacific Sociological Association. She aspires to one day lead a global research institute that produces innovative, usable, and justice-oriented scholarship on migration and urban change in cities across the global South. Gahan? There you go. And then just do want to do this for the slides.
Thank you. I'm a Jamaican, so we talk a lot, so I'm also gonna time myself so I don't go over. Although I probably will go over a little bit, so please, I ask for your indulgence. So around the world, a growing number of migrants and their descendants are voluntarily leaving traditional migrant-receiving countries across Western countries like the US, Canada, and the UK, and returning to their ancestral homelands in other parts of the world. And so when I use the term return, I'm using it quite expansively. This ranges from things like frequently visiting their countries of birth for a short term, or things like permanently relocating to their ancestral homeland. And this isn't just the first generation of migrants who are doing that. So increasingly we're seeing the second, third, and subsequent generations of migrants who are descendants of these first generation migrants also making these transnational engagements to their ancestral homelands. And so these return movements are often celebrated and encouraged by homeland governments as an unquestionable good thing. So these governments see segments of the diaspora as ideal national development partners capable of bringing skills, networks, different forms of capital to their homeland for development goals. And while this may be the case, this framing really obscures how power asymmetries are inherent in movement in the contemporary context. So diasporic returnees do typically arrive with higher levels of capital, but because of this can exacerbate and create new forms of inequality in the places where they're relocating to. And so because many migrants end up settling in cities, this ends up becoming an increasingly common urban phenomenon where we're seeing these type of inequalities persist, especially in cities and countries across the global South, where the diaspora is really participating in homeland activities. So we're seeing things like this in Ghana, India, Nigeria, as well as Jamaica, which is where my research is situated. And so increasingly we're seeing a growing number of diasporic Jamaicans purchasing homes on the island, and at the same time, many local Jamaicans are unable to afford a home due to rising housing costs. It's estimated that of the 300 new apartments that entered the local housing market in Kingston, which is Jamaica's capital city, approximately 70 to 80% of them were purchased by overseas homeowners. And despite the fact that these transnational movements are becoming more widespread, scholarly literature still lacks a framework that's capable of really understanding how a country's diaspora is participating in these type of urban transformations in their homeland. And so my dissertation research seeks to theorize what I'm terming diasporic urbanism. So I'm trying to understand how the transnational activities of a diaspora is participating in these ongoing urban transformations within their homeland. And so I'm doing this by using the case of Kingston, Jamaica. So Kingston is currently on a trajectory of becoming a creative city, so there's a lot of investment right now in the creative and cultural industries in the city. And so I'm looking at how the diaspora is participating in the development of Kingston's creative and cultural industries and the impact that these industries are having on the city. And so why does this matter? So the development of the creative and cultural industries does offer an important pathway for social and economic development in Jamaica's post-colonial context, as well as new ways of diasporic connections with the homeland. But if we are looking at the global literature on gentrification, we know that arts, culture, and creativity often sit at the frontier of gentrification pressures and neighborhood change. So many neighborhoods that are undergoing these creative redevelopment process are at risk of gentrification. So I am 36 seconds over time. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to talk about this after the ceremony. Thank you.
I'm gonna be for real with you. When she sent me her slides, I was like, "There's no way," in under that much. But yeah, I'm impressed. Even 30 seconds over that, great work. All right, they're doing it without the glasses, so I can start. All right. All right, we'll move on to our next inductee, and thank you again, Kayan. So our next inductee is Tasmin Clement, who is a candidate for the PhD in computational medicine at the University of Michigan, where her research applies genomics, I think that's how you say it, to study healthcare-associated infections. It tests me every year. An American Society for Microbiology ASM Future Leaders Fellow and Michigan Center for Infectious Disease Threats trainee. She holds a BS from the University of Notre Dame. Prior to her doctoral studies, she gained research experience at the National Cancer Institute. Through the Graduate Society of Women Engineers, she led a professional development conference for women in Liberia, West Africa. Most recently, she received an AstraZeneca Award for innovative approaches in oncology care. Tasmin is passionate about improving lives through science and technology. Thank you. I struggled through that one, I'm sorry. Science is hard.
Thank you. So I'm actually the opposite of Miss Kayon. You won't see slides today, but you'll hear from me. And so I want you to close your eyes and really imagine you're a veteran living in a nursing home. You've served your country, survived combat, and now you're facing an invisible enemy, a drug-resistant bacteria called MRSA. MRSA kills tens of thousands of Americans every year, and in nursing homes it spreads silently, often before anyone even knows it's there. And so the conventional assumption is that MRSA passes directly between people. You can think of sports teams in high schools passing it on, swim teams is very popular in those settings. But I look at something different. Not just people to people, but my research asks a different question. What if the environment itself is doing the spreading? And so I study bacteria spread in healthcare facilities using a tool called whole genome sequencing. Don't worry about it. And so think of it this way. You all know what DNA is. We all have DNA, and even bacteria, living things have DNA. And so with this DNA that's collected from residents in the spaces that they share, wheelchairs, therapy tables, dining, and cafe facilities, I can trace exactly where the bug has been and when it has originated. And so then it looks at how it got there from one person to the next. And so what I found really challenges the standard story. In several cases, we found the same strain of bacteria on shared equipment before patients even touched it, really implying that things are staying on surfaces longer than we could have imagined. They're left behind in shared spaces waiting for the next person to pick things up. And so this really has real consequences for how we keep people safe. Right now, you go into a healthcare facility and you see maybe physicians or nurses putting hand sanitizer on, right? Each time they enter a room or exit a room. And so we know that this isn't just a veterans issue. Healthcare facilities across the country share the same challenge. Crowded spaces, vulnerable patients, and detection tools that weren't really designed for how bacteria actually move. And so my goal is to really give infection teams a better map, not just who has MRSA, but how it's traveling through a facility and where it stops and how we stop it in its place. And then because for these veterans in these nursing homes, this map could really be a difference in their treatment outcomes. And so the reason I'm in public health is because I love spreading information. No pun intended. And so if you take anything away, if you go see doctors or you go to healthcare facilities, remember that you too can also wash your hands in between appointments. You too can also wash your hands after you leave and before you enter spaces. That could just be one stop in the spread of all of this happening. Thank you.
Oh, it was opposite this time. I was waiting for the other way. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. And my notes are out of order, but I'm able to pivot because it's Jeremy next. All right. Jeremy Edwards is a doctoral candidate in marketing at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. His research examines the costs consumers bear when their identities are threatened or rendered marginal in marketplace contexts. His current work focuses on Black consumers' protective behaviors shaped through racial socialization and how these strategies can misfire in ways that extend beyond the shopping experience. While conducting his research, Jeremy has also dedicated his time to strengthening doctoral student success. He works with the Rackham Graduate School's PACE team, yes he does, using marketing and communication strategy to connect Rackham Merit Fellows to resources and community. And may I add, Jeremy was also one of the inaugural PACE Fellows, which is for student and climate and success as well. He missed that in his bio, but it's very important. So here you go, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Jeremy, doctoral candidate in the Ross School of Business and Marketing, and my research entitled, Are There Environmental Costs of Racial Bias in Retail Settings, looks at how racial bias doesn't just impact individuals in the marketplace, but how it can unintentionally create environmental costs. After the death of Trayvon Martin, President Barack Obama talked very candidly about race and described the phenomenon that many Black Americans go through. This is the act of being followed in stores while shopping simply because of the color of their skin. Many Black Americans go through this, and Barack Obama went on to say there are very few African American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. This is anecdotal, but research goes on to show that this phenomenon is real. Surveys countlessly show that Black Americans feel that they have been treated unfairly in comparison to their white counterparts. However, research goes on to map this racial bias across Black consumers' consumer journey. Black consumers are more likely to be met with longer wait times while they're shopping, be met with heightened suspicion when they're engaging with products in a store, and even have to endure way more hurdles when they return items back to a store. So you see this racism, this racial bias is very pervasive in the marketplace. However, one thing that the literature does not discuss is how Black consumers navigate these bias spaces. And what happens when they use the protective behaviors that make them feel safe? What happens when those actual behaviors actually backfire, especially around sustainability? So let's look at this. Retailers over the last several years have really been working hard to push and encourage reusable bags to reduce single-use plastic waste. However, my research uncovers that Black consumers adopt these protective behaviors very early on in life that actually conflict with this conflict with adopting this reusable bag. The unwritten rule is avoid entering stores with bags from other places. We see also in the case where retailers and governments are trying to push phasing out paper receipts to also reduce waste. But my research uncovers Black consumers adopt another protective behavior. Always take a bag and a receipt. So you can see that these sustainability goals are actually in conflict with these retail behaviors that Black consumers adopt to make them feel safe, to avoid being seen as suspicious, and to have proof of purchase in case someone starts questioning them. So my research across so many studies takes a mixed method approach that documents these protective behaviors, but then also through a set of experiments shows that anticipated surveillance actually motivates Black consumers to always take that receipt, though retailers are trying to phase them out, and to stay away from using reusable bag, even though they want to protect the earth, but not at the expense of their safety. And so why is this important? I want to call out this conflict because I want retailers to understand that you're completely missing the goal in terms of having a particular racial consumer group adopting these sustainable behaviors that allow for the full impact to take place. Until retailers understand how they can design a marketplace that doesn't put Black consumers at harm, then they'll be able to adopt these sustainable behaviors so that we can have a cleaner and more environmentally conscious society. Thank you.
All right, there we go. All right, everyone. Our next inductee is Emanuela Echi-Chukwu, who is a PhD candidate in the Industrial and Systems Engineering with a concentration in human-centered engineering design at the University of Michigan Dearborn. I do want to say, Ella is our first inductee from University of Michigan Dearborn, so if we could just give it up for that. And you'll see why it's incredibly well-deserved. So Ella's research examines student AI collaboration and learning outcomes. She's been recognized for academic excellence and scholarly achievement through her induction into the Alpha Pi Mu, the Industrial Engineering Honor Society, and the Sigma Z Scientific Research Honor Society as well. Ella has worked with the CRLT engine to improve course design. She also supports a large cohort of engineering students through project-based learning, computational problem solving, and design activities. Ella aspires to advance human-centered design and engineering education through research, teaching, and advocacy. Okay. And if you just want to use that.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So, as you all know, AI is the buzzword right now, and it's been integrated in almost every aspect of life. It's also drastically and at a very fast pace impacting everything, including how we learn and in engineering education. Now, why there are positive things to look at and say, oh, yeah, this is the good sides of AI, there's also the downsides. And industry experts have raised concerns about over-reliance as students use these tools in their learning. So while over-reliance is a key, my study is focused on investigating and finding out how do we integrate AI effectively in engineering education such that it could reduce excessive cognitive load, because you already know engineering is complex, a lot of formulas, computations, and stuff. So how do we use AI effectively to reduce cognitive load and allow students to engage in problem solving in ways that they are still actively engaged and they are learning in the whole process. So overall, I'm looking at how AI use impacts overall learning outcomes in engineering education. Sorry. Now, this is important because engineering education is not just focused about finding the correct answers. It's also focused on helping students develop critical skills, such as critical thinking, problem solving, and just overall engineering judgment. So it's important that we investigate how these tools impact the engineers of tomorrow. So my study is using the mixed methods, and it's going to occur in 3 phases. In the first phase, we investigate AI use across context. We know that engineering education occurs across various contexts, and it's important to implement policies on this use and make sure that these policies adapt to the context of use in engineering education. And the second phase, we're looking at cognitive load and problem solving. What changes? How does AI change? How students are using this tool? Because the question is no longer, are they using the tool? You already know they are. So the question is, how is it changing? How is AI changing engineering education? And then the final phase is going to be looking at learning outcomes. So first, from this study, I hope to contribute to theory by extending our understanding of AI use through the cognitive lens, and also by framing how AI can be used as a scaffold and not as a substitute. And then another contribution is to evidence. While this AI is a new tool, people are concerned that there's going to be the long-term effect of skill erosion due to over-reliance on the tool. So my study is going to provide evidence and that contribute to, or that provide specific findings of how AI implemented in specific ways across different learning contexts can be used to support cognition, strategy, and to also improve learning outcomes. And thirdly, I hope to contribute to practice by informing how instructors can integrate AI more responsibly into engineering education, especially in ways that preserve reasoning, verification, and meaningful engagement. These main takeaways from the main takeaway of my dissertation is how AI can support meaningful learning, how it can scaffold reasoning, and not replace it. So the central message I hope to pass across at the end of my research is to contribute to the ongoing conversation about AI use in engineering education. Thank you.
Yeah. You can? Yeah, of course. Great. All right, our next, yes, of course. You can applaud all you want. Go ahead. Yeah, please do. The whole time, we'll applaud. All right, our next inductee is Dr. Dr. Blake T. Hipsley recently defended his dissertation and will earn his PhD in physics from the University of Michigan. His research investigates the electronic and optical properties of novel semiconductors using nonlinear spectroscopy. Sid, we got there? You know what? I was really confident coming up, and then I lost it as I started to say it. But he'll say it correctly, and that's all that matters. Passionate about mentorship, Blake is dedicated to supporting students from diverse backgrounds through the McNair Scholars Program and assisting with their academic goals. At Michigan, Blake helped foster an inclusive and collaborative working environment within the physics department through his leadership roles in the Physics Graduate Student Council and as lead graduate student instructor, receiving the Marcellus L. Weidenbeck Teaching Award for his impactful teaching and mentorship. There you go.
Yes, perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So my research delves into looking at different types of semiconductors, particularly using nonlinear optical spectroscopy. For those who don't know, the PhD that Bouchet got back in 1876, 150 years ago, was looking at optical properties of materials. So a nice little ancestral lineage there. My technique's a little bit more complicated, but that's okay. I would like to think we've gone somewhere in the last 150 years. So semiconductors are used in a wide variety of different electronics, photonics, and optoelectronics. And so trying to understand what's actually happening with the electrons in these materials and how they can be used in various applications is important for furthering different types of applications, including quantum devices. So these semiconductors, particularly when you look at the two-dimensional versions where they're only one atomic layer thick, have really strong light-matter interactions, and particularly because they create things known as excitons when you hit them with light. So these excitons are created when you excite an electron from the valence band to the conduction band, and the hole that's left behind actually bonds to the electron because of the opposite charge and creates this quasi-particle, all right? And these have unique optical properties and have unique optical spectrums. However, when you perform linear spectroscopy on them, things that cause inhomogeneous broadening, such as strain or changes in the dielectric environment of the materials, will lead to a broadening. And this broadening is masking the intrinsic line width of the material. And this is important because we want to know the intrinsic line width because this gives us information to what is the dephasing rate once you create these excitons, right? Useful for quantum applications in particular. So my technique deals with sending multiple pulses of light onto these atomically thin materials, and from that we can delay the time delays between these different pulses and create a multi-dimensional spectrum as I show here. And so what happens is that these correlates different parts of the spectrum, and so we can extract the information and differentiate between the inhomogeneous broadening that mainly shows up along the diagonal with the homogeneous broadening that's intrinsic to the material that shows up on this cross diagonal. And we can do various things with this and study what different parameters can affect the spectra, such as changing the fluence or the power with the laser pulses that we send to it, which I show here, which shows that the signal actually saturates at a certain period, which means that we're no longer looking at a third order signal, we're actually looking at higher order interactions, and there's some more complicated physics going on. And we also look at how does the line width change. In this case, we see the line widths grow as we increase power, which means we're changing the types of physics that we're seeing here. All to say is that this is important research into understanding how these semiconductors work and what applications they can be used in. Thank you.
Great. All right, our next inductee is Brittany Poehler, who is a PhD candidate in the Department of Asian Languages and Cultures at University of Michigan. Her dissertation examines community and religious formations, historical memory, and the caste system in Sikhism. Brittany is a dedicated graduate student mentor in the Michigan Humanities Emerging Research Scholars Program, or MISHERS, so she's also a member of the PACE team. Oh, I see MISHERS folks back there, yeah. We have to shout out our PACE team and MISHERS, of course. In her service to her department, she's implemented programming to improve departmental climate and cultivate an inclusive community. Her advocacy work within the Tri-Continental Solidarity Network has also allowed her to collaborate with several organizations to create an academic and artistic collective and organize teach-ins around global imperialist struggles. Brittany?
Thanks, you guys. So my research really looks at caste in South Asia, which is India and Pakistan for most folks. And typically when we think of caste, we think of this picture up here. So this four-field hierarchy in Hinduism. We have priests at the top, Brahmins, sorry, that was loud, warriors below them, rulers, Kshatriyas, and then like the scribal, mercantile, farming caste, Vaishyas, and then Shudras, which are laborers. There's also an untouchable caste below them that is actually outside of the caste system. We call them Dalits today, or backward classes. So what I really argue is that caste is pertinent to all South Asian religions, particularly Sikhism. So not Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism as well. And what I argue is that caste is fundamentally integral to Sikh religion, dating back to its founding. So we have 10 Sikh gurus, our founders are godmen in Sikh society. And if you look at the genealogies that their families wrote, if you look at the scriptures that they wrote, and even hagiographies written by the families thereafter, it shows that they were very conscious of their caste status and were actually trying to mobilize their status from merchants, as we see Vaishyas, up to warriors. And they were very successful in doing that in the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. And so in the 18th century, we really see this kind of manifest. And for many historians, the 18th century is kind of seen as this golden age of Sikh rule. A lot of low caste folks actually converted to Sikhism and then joined this military sect called the Khalsa. And by doing so, they were able to actually join military bands, conquer large parts of Punjab, get a lot of war spoils, and became rulers of Punjab in the 18th century. And so we actually see a lot of Dalits and Shudras join Sikhism. What I actually argue is that if you look at their genealogies and the oral histories by their family, and even the histories at this time, they joined Sikhism as a way to gain high caste status. So actually by the 19th century, we start seeing Dalits and Shudras become Kshatriya warriors in their caste status. And many of these people actually rule a large part of India and also have large part of the land. So they became quite powerful people. And so I guess the question is, why do we think of Sikhism as this egalitarian casteless faith? And I basically find that this is a modern concept, and it goes back to the late 19th, 20th century. So a lot of Sikh reformers were very conscious of the history and how it contradicted the facts, the religion itself. And so they actually went back and edited a lot of the Sikh scriptures, revised a lot of the hagiographies, and rewrote Sikh history. That way the egalitarian ideals were central to the Sikh faith. And that's what I do. Thank you all.
All right. And last but certainly not least, oh yeah, clap again. I'm sorry. I keep cutting off the applause. Last but certainly not least, Elizabeth Betsy Strail is a PhD candidate in Engineering Education Research Program at the University of Michigan and a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellow. Her research examines how working-class undergraduate engineering students make sense of their experiences within elite engineering programs, centering student voice through participatory and qualitative methods such as photo voice and interviews. Betsy has presented her work at national conferences, including ASEE and Frontiers in Education, and is actively engaged in scholarship on class, ethics, and equity in engineering. She also serves in institutional leadership roles and volunteers in K-12 outreach, advancing equity through research, service, and advocacy. Betsy?
I know I'm last, but I'm also setting a timer because I am unfortunately a bit of a yapper. So just to respect everyone's time. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Really appreciate it from both my perspective, and I'm sure all the other inductees really appreciate it as well. Like Chloe said, my name is Betsy Strail. I'm a PhD candidate student here in the Engineering Education Research Program, and I focus on social class in my research. And unfortunately, I can't unpack, the light subject that is social class for us all today in my remaining 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But really, when I'm saying the term working class, I'm focusing on students whose economic or financial background and family history with higher education really shape how they experience college. So that might be language familiar with first-gen status, if you've heard that, low income status, low SES. There are a lot of different words to phrase what I really focus on in terms of experience, but instead of focusing on the term itself, I want to dive into that experience. So as you see with this kind of iceberg graphic I have on the screen, a lot of what social class looks like in higher educational settings thus far is kind of these objective indicators. So whether or not a student is eligible for the U.S. Pell Grant, whether or not a student has a parent that attended a four-year university, for instance, that is the U of M definition of being a first-generation student. And while all of these matter and they are super helpful at identifying students that may struggle, it does not tell us enough about what that actual experience looks like. It doesn't tell us about whether or not students really feel like they belong, who they go seek help from, whether they feel comfortable even seeking help. It doesn't tell us enough about how they actually navigate this undergraduate process or this experience more broadly, which is why I'm doing research kind of looking at, within the engineering context, how are working class undergraduate students really reading and responding to the cultural expectations that are embedded within engineering. So those of you may or may not know, engineering is its own unique discipline in that it has its own unique characteristics, often defined by high amounts of academic workload and intensity, long amounts of time dedicated towards those academic pursuits, which often means that a lot of the experiences that we already know about working class students are often compiled or kind of doubled down upon, if you will, because of all of these different unique cultural aspects in engineering. Because of that, I really want to explore this using a variety of different techniques, often pulling in from social science fields, so using photo voice, specifically having students share images that represent their significant moments as a first-gen or low-income student on campus, then having them come together, discuss those experiences, and have them synthesize what they feel. like the significant aspects or the common aspects of our experience are. And one of the really most popular, most common ones is this bottom of the screen, which I will say converted a little weird. But the most common theme that students were identifying in these focus groups is this idea that they are navigating college alone or often without a map. Give me like 15 more seconds, I promise. But to kind of read this quote, if you can't see it on screen, this is coming from Kat, who is a first-year engineering student, and she says that often she feels like she has to work so much harder than a lot of people, figuring out a lot of stuff that they just have more resources to help with. And I chose this quote really because I think in this room, we are all scholars. Whether or not we've attended higher educational institutions, we've all probably felt that moment where we are navigating something without a map. So I really want my research to kind of put name to and describe a lot more of that effort that students are doing that isn't always recognized. So with that, thank you. Yeah.
Great. Let's give another round of applause for everybody and Betsy. Thank you so much to our inductees for sharing your impressive work. Thank you for everyone being here today, family, friends, advisors, everyone who joined. One thing I do want to say about this group, I actually looked this up, all right? I was interested, I was like, okay, how many PhD students are there? Which I couldn't find, but I did see that there was 3.7 million folks with PhDs in the US, because I was thinking about how lots of institutions graduate students with PhDs. Lots of institutions do amazing work, they have amazing research, they create amazing classes of people like this, but one thing that struck me so much about this class of inductees was how kind they are and how good of people they are. And how supportive they are. When we were at the induction last week, nobody cheered harder for everybody in that room than our section of U of M inductees. And it made me so proud to be from University of Michigan, and it made me so proud of them because not everybody can get a PhD. I'm not gonna lie to you and say everyone can get a PhD, but a lot of people can get a PhD. Not everybody can be a great person and be good and be kind and supportive like I saw our inductees be. And today as I walked in, as they were all grouped together, and I said, I'm sorry, I have to break you all up, but I was just so very proud of them, and it continues to be one of my favorite parts of my job and of supporting Bouchet is to see how each class of inductees grow together and how they support each other, particularly this group. So once again, I'll do one last round of applause for everybody. Thank you. Thank you again to everyone who helped make this event possible. 2 quick housekeeping items. Please grab food, of course. For our inductees or anyone who wishes to, in the interest of sustainability, feel free to grab flowers as when the event concludes. Our beautiful calla lilies here. And then for our Bouchet inductees, I believe our lovely photographer would love to take a picture of you all out in the hallway, correct? Okay, yes, in the hallway, in some of the beautiful art out there. So that's all I have for housekeeping and our planned program. Please enjoy each other's company, and thank you again.